coming. I've been doing these clinics now for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, usually once a month, and covering different topics. This time is going to be a continuation of the last class I did, which was on kicking and banking. Last time we covered primarily one-rail systems, probably 7 or 8 different ways to kick one rail. Today we're going to cover another one-rail system that can also be used for two-rail banks. It's very accurate. It's not published very often. I've only seen it probably a few times over the years. And then we're going to cover all of the standard like two-rail and three-rail banking system, kicking systems. And then we're also going to talk about banking and the different effects that apply when you're banking a ball, and how you can use all of these kicking systems to also help you make more bank shots. So I'll go ahead and get started. Should have a little bit of chalk. So there we go. So it'll be like a little bit of math today, maybe just a little. But the nice thing about using this projection system is I can kind of display this, and while I'm talking, you can kind of look at the numbers a little bit. Obviously, you can go back and watch this later. It'll be on my website, my YouTube channel, the Billiard Factory YouTube channel. I really emphasize with all these systems, whether there's math involved or not, you have to practice. You have to practice them. Just do it a little bit, you know, once a week, twice a week. When I was learning these systems, I would spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes every time I played trying to work on it until it became so natural that I just could do it within a second or two. So this particular system is called System SID. I believe it was named after an old three-cushion player named Sid Banner. I probably first saw it 15 or 20 years ago in some obscure three-cushion book, and I've seen it in another three-cushion book. I haven't seen it too often in a lot of the pool books or a lot of the videos out there. I probably kicked in more balls using this system than any other system that I use. It is very accurate, and it's a good one to know. Where it's useful is when you have a ball somewhere along the lawn rail and the cue ball is somewhere out on the table. So this particular example I'm going to start with would be right here. So imagine again if somebody kind of, you know, leaves you like that. Hey John, go ahead and just grab a seat. Yeah. So a lot of people in this situation, they might try to kick off this rail here, but and sometimes you may want to do that, right? If you can accurately kick this way, there's nothing wrong with that. When I see a situation like this, I love to actually try to make the ball. I feel I have a pretty good shot, especially when the ball is kind of in this good position where it's just a little bit off the rail. You can kind of hit it coming in, or if you misjudge a little, you can hit it coming back off the rail. So the way this works is you have object ball numbers along the rail, which correspond to where your ball happens to be. So it starts with, it's a little bit off in the beginning, but then it goes by half diamonds. So it starts with 1 right here, and then 2. And then after that, it's every half diamond, so or every diamond's a half. So 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. So once you figure out where your spot is that you want to hit, you just come over and see how many diamonds away from this corner your cue ball is. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and like I show here, you can even project if there was another diamond, say out here. It kind of lines up to 5 right there. You can do 6, 7 if you want. So if I'm at 3 diamonds away from the corner, and this ball is sitting at 4, I multiply those two numbers together. So 3 times 4 is 12. So that tells me where I need to hit on the end rail to make the shot. And so we number these in tens. So this would be 10, 20, 30, 40. So 12 would be about 2 inches away from where 10 is, so right about where this chalk is. And I think I mentioned before on a 9-foot table, the diamonds are like 12 and a half apart or something, so roughly if you go up like one number, if you're counting by tens, every number is roughly like an inch or like an inch and a little bit more, so it's a good way of estimating. So as you can see from this line, if I hit a 12 and I want to aim through the diamond, not at the rail opposite the diamond, but right at the spot on where the diamond track is, I should get pretty close to hitting this. So we'll see. So this also, just to mention, this is what's called a dead ball system. So you want to hit this directly in the center. No right, no left English. I usually aim about a half tip above center just to get the ball rolling right away. Because if you hit right in the center, the ball will skid for a little bit before it rolls. So I just like to get it rolling right away. So just a little above center. Okay, so it's pretty close. Like I said, I would expect if I hit this a few times, it's always going to be very close, and I would think that I would make the ball pretty, probably 20 to 30% of the time, maybe 40% of the time. It's a very accurate system. Let me turn this up just a little bit. Yes. So it actually starts with 1 right here and then 2. So that's the only time that it's kind of numbered a little funky because it gets close to the corner. So pretty much it's every half diamond though. So 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, and then 4.5, 5. So if you kind of remember that 3 is in the side pocket and 5 is in the corner, then you can kind of guesstimate in between even if you forget. And then, like I said, you just count how many diamonds away you are from the corner, and then that gives you, multiply those numbers together, that gives you your spot on the rail. So we'll do another example just randomly. So if I put this ball here at 2, and I throw the cue ball out somewhere, okay, so again, this is 1, this is 2. So if I look at my cue ball, I'm pretty close to 2 diamonds away. I'm not exactly on it, but pretty close to 2. So if I take 2 times 2, it's 4. So that would give me my aim spot. If I'm halfway between, that would be 5, so like that would be 4 right there. Now what I do in these situations, you have to estimate where your cue ball is coming from. So it's not where it is opposite this, it's where it crosses, right? So if this would be 2, you can see this would be my line, like right here. And the cue ball is a little bit to the left of that line. So I would either use the spot on the wall technique and project a line out like we talked about last time, or usually what I'll do is just sort of parallel my cue over a little bit. It's usually close enough for short distances. So if I look at this and I look at that line, just going to come over a little bit, so I'm basically going to aim just a little bit to the left of that chalk. Okay, so, and you can actually kind of validate that this system works, and I don't know how, I've come up with little things on my own, but a lot of these systems are things I've learned from books or learned from people over the years. And I'm sure when people come up with these things, they find a relationship between the diamonds somehow. They put some numbers on it, they kind of test it out and see if it works over a range of shots. And when it does, then it sort of becomes a system or a technique. If you kind of look at this, if I put the cue ball here, the corner pocket is 5. I'm 1, 2, 3, 4 diamonds away, so that puts me at 20. And 20 is right in the middle of the table, which makes sense, right? Because I want to cut that angle in half. And so if I was going to aim at this ball without any kind of a system, I would want to hit halfway between, which would be right in the middle diamond. So you can kind of see that the system, it works for that angle, and it just so happens to work for these other ones as well. And again, there's a little bit of math. I've actually myself, as excited as I get when I see one of these shots in a game, I got a little too excited one time and jumped up to the table and shot the ball and missed it by probably half a diamond and thought, well, the table's playing bad, or I maybe got a little spin on the ball or whatever. And as I went to go sit down, I realized that I used the wrong number. I multiplied by 3 instead of 4, and that explains why I missed it by half a diamond. So, and again, that's where you just have to you have to pay attention. You don't want to spend a minute trying to figure the shot out, but I can usually figure these out in 2, 3, 4 seconds, and then spend your time making sure that you get a good, nice center ball hit. Because the worst thing you can do on this is to hit the ball with a little accidental right or left English, it will not come close. I'm going to show one or two more examples on this, and then if you guys have any questions, just let me know. Wrong one. So one of the interesting shots can be when the ball's near the side pocket. So let's say the ball's like right here. Well, if you look at the system, the way you count the diamonds, you're really trying to count to where the ball hits on the rail. So I don't want the cue ball to hit right here, because it'll probably hit maybe the bottom side of the 5. Could even scratch if this ball was away from the pocket a little bit. So in an example like this, I really need the ball to kind of come past the 5 and kind of hit the outside edge of it, or I need it to come off this rail and bounce away and try to catch the 5 on the kind of on the rebound. And so I kind of showed both of those paths with these arrows. So on one hand, I'd be maybe aiming at 3.5, which is this diamond right here, because I want the ball to land right there. And if I project backwards, that path looks like it'd be pretty close to kind of catching the side of the 5 and making it. The other way to approach a shot like this is to try to hit it short and catch it coming off the rail. And so again, if I try to pretend like I'm trying to hit it 2.5, I could hit here, and then hopefully with the right bounce, catch the 5 coming on the way out. Now, which one I choose would depend kind of on where this ball is. If the ball was more toward this side, I'd probably try to come off the rail and catch it. If it was more toward the high side of the pocket, I'd probably try to clip it coming in here. So I'm going to try both of these and see how the table is playing. So if I put the cue ball right here, and again, say somebody hooks you like this, I'm 4 diamonds away from that rail. So if I want to hit 3.5, 4 times 3.5, which I showed up here, is 13.5. So that puts my aim spot about 3.5 inches or so away from this diamond. So right about there. So again, that would be to come directly past the ball and try to hit that spot right there. It's fun trying to aim in the dark. Okay, so you can see you just barely missed it. And again, there's no way you're ever going to predict that you're going to hit that ball perfect, but it's going to give you a really... So then the other shot from this exact position would be 2.5. So again, 4 times 2.5 is 10. So that puts you right on that diamond. And this would be if you're trying to come off the rail. Okay, so that one came up a little high, but again, you know, that can happen too. So just kind of a note on using the system when the ball is near the side pocket like that. It's, like I said, it's pretty accurate if you hit it at that nice, it's not really a lag speed, maybe just a little bit stronger than a lag speed. If you have to hit it really hard, because you're trying to make something happen with the ball, then you just want to aim a little bit closer to the cushion, because the ball is going to compress into the cushion and rebound. So, hey. So, like with this example, if I was trying to hit this ball and my original spot was right about here at about 13.5, if I'm trying to hit this ball hard, I usually try to adjust over about 10%. So if my numbers back like 1.3 from that, and it puts me at about 12-ish. So it tells me I can maybe aim over about an inch. So I would aim right about there. Let's see if this works if I hit this pretty firm. Okay. The biggest challenge really when you're hitting the ball firmer like that is for most people, even very good players, your stroke fundamentals tend to break down a little bit when you start to hit a little firmer. So again, you just have to watch out for any unwanted side spin. The great thing about this system is that it also works across the table. Same exact numbering, it's just instead of numbering By the diamonds, you number by half diamonds because it's half the distance. So from here, we have 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. The numbers along the rail are the same, just one number for every diamond away from the rail that you are. So on this example, I'm going to put a ball here, which tells me I really want the cue ball to be at 3. If I put my cue ball out here, I can project a line through and I can see that I'm coming off the 5th diamond. So 5 times 3 is 15. Those 2 diamonds, this would be 10, 20, 30, 40 going up the rail. So again, rolling ball. Okay. So like I said, it's very accurate lengthwise and across. Sometimes when the cue ball gets up here a little bit, when you hit that first rail, it'll slide a little bit. So again, that's where a little bit of the practice comes in. But when you're in kind of this half a table range, it's very accurate to hit balls along here. You'll have shots like this all the time. I need a remote to turn the lights down. So if I had a shot like this, it's a nice ringtone. So if I have a shot like this, I'm going to come down here and go, okay, that's 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. And I'm just going to come up here and estimate where my cue ball is. So if I think it's at 3, 3 times 4 would be 12. So my line would be right here. So again, the cue ball is pretty close to that. So I just kind of parallel over a little bit and hit into that spot. Okay, and it's going to be pretty close. I said nobody's going to make that shot every time, but it's very accurate. I've had very good success with this. So go ahead and, I would kind of suggest that if you get a chance, if you're interested in the system, like I said, it's not published very much. So go back on, on YouTube after this when it's saved and, try to watch it and look at the numbers. It's pretty straightforward. I showed it to my little buddy over there. And like I said, you got to work with it a little bit. And once you do, though, it's a very powerful system. Any questions on this one? Okay.
Yeah, one. Well, why do you need to make an adjustment because it's a longer shot that's going across the table? In other words, if you've got the cue ball over here, like by the second to last diamond, and the object ball on the side, is there going to be an adjustment?
Just because when you're hitting the angle at a different, when you're hitting at a more like not as much of a direct angle, right. The cue ball, especially on different types of felt, it will tend to slide down the rail a little bit, and so sometimes you'll end up missing the ball a little short because of that slide. So in my experience, what I usually do is I'll hit the ball just a little bit harder, or I'll aim maybe just a little bit higher, and I'm talking just a little. Because usually when the ball hits at an angle, it comes in like this. It actually slides down the rail a little bit and then comes off. And so that little bit of slide is going to make a difference as to how it comes off. Yeah. Sure.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the numbering of the pockets. At one point, you pointed down here and said that's 12, 12.5. Are you numbering the pockets basically from the orientation of your cue ball?
So the question was the numbering on the rail. So the numbers going across both for the hit points and for the cue ball is coming off the rail that the ball is along. So if I'm trying to kick,
Object ball?
Yeah, the object ball. So if the ball's over on this rail, then all the numbering kind of starts from here and works that way. Okay. If I was trying to kick a ball on the other side of the table, then it would come this way. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is there an adjustment if the ball's not on the rail? So not really an adjustment per se, but then you have to kind of pick which one is the closest spot, because the whole system is predicated on you hitting a spot on the rail. So let's say I have a ball right here I'm trying to kick, and I do this all the time in a game. Right, so someone hooks you like this. So I can choose in this example to try to hit the ball one rail directly, or I can maybe try to come off the rail and hit it. It would depend on where the other balls are and what I'm trying to do with the kick shot. But let's say I want to come off the rail, I might kind of eyeball this, and this is where a little bit of experience and practice comes in. I may want to say, okay, well, if I come off this spot right here, that's going to give me enough of a rebound angle where I'm going to come up and hit that ball. So I would pick 2 as my spot. So my target's really right there. So I'm looking at my cue ball position, and I'm around the 3rd diamond. So 2 times 6 is, 2 times 3 is 6. So that would mean my spot that I want to hit is about right there. So I look at that, and again, my cue ball's a little bit over, so I'll come over a little bit. So if I aim from here, okay, and again, this depends on where the balls are, whether I feel making a hit coming off the rail is going to leave my opponent safe, or whether hitting it directly is going to leave them safe. So it just depends, like I said, where the rest of the balls are. But it gives you a nice option, instead of just guessing, to actually know kind of where you're going to hit on that rail. Like I said, I found it to be very accurate. It's actually used in 3 cushion a lot, just for educational purposes. Shots called tickies, where the balls are like this, and the cue ball might be down here. Oh, here, let me do it this way so we're in the same spot. So we have these kind of shots, and the cue ball might be here, and you're trying to hit 3 rails with the cue ball and also hit both balls. So one of the shots might be to come to this rail, hit this rail, hit this ball, hit this rail, and then hit that ball to score the point. So you're catching 1, 2, and then 3 rails before you hit that. So that's where the system came from, was trying to figure out where do I aim on that rail to get to that spot right there. So again, in this example, let me just move this over. If I'm over here 4 diamonds away, and I want to hit that 2nd diamond, so I want to aim at 8. And so I just scooted by the ball, but that would be a good way to aim it, where I'd come into the rail, catch that ball just barely, and then hit the rail again and hit the ball. And that's actually where the system came from. So I learned it a long time ago when I was playing 3 cushion, and it was pretty useful for that. Okay, so let's talk about 2 rail systems. In all the years I've spent researching and looking at publications and old books and everything like that, I've only really ever come across 3 different 2 rail systems, and 2 of them are really the main ones. There's another like Z-Bank system. If you guys are familiar with Efren's like famous shot that he did probably 15 years ago now, he did not use a system for that. That was all feel and experience. But those types of shots where you kind of come, you know, across the table like that, there is a system for that, but it's not, like I said, it's not very well known, and this shot doesn't come up very much. But these other 2 rail systems come up all the time, and they're also very accurate, so they're good to know. So this first one is called the +2 system, and it's called that because if you hit kind of near the corner, the cue ball will return about 2 diamonds past where. So for this system, you'll start from the corner, which is numbered 1, and then every half diamond is another number. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You really don't have to worry about these usually. It's usually somewhere between 1 and 5 where you're hitting. And so then all you do is you count how many diamonds away you are from the ball you're trying to hit. So if I start with this diamond where the cue ball is, I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm 5 diamonds away from the ball. So that tells me I want to hit number 5 on the rail up here. The numbers just have to match. I've seen people teach the system a couple different ways. I think Tor Lowry videos where he multiplies all the numbers by 10 and he does subtraction and everything to get to the number. I learned it this way, and I still prefer this method for me because it's simple. I just look at the cue ball. I'm like, I'm 5 diamonds away. I want to hit 5 on the rail. Now what I found people don't talk about this usually, on most tables, if you hit directly in, so the way people compensate for that is they add a bunch of spin to the ball. And they kind of know if I'm at this angle, I use a little less spin, and if I'm at this angle, I use a little more spin. Joe Villapando has a DVD from, again, many, many years ago. He talked about making a quarter diamond adjustment, and when I played with that, it actually works really well, so that's what I do. So if I'm aiming at 5, which is right here in the middle of the table, I'm going to aim a quarter diamond away, which is about 2.5 inches. So my aim spot's going to be right here. And for this shot, you want to use running English. So running English is basically high enough on the ball to get the ball rolling right away, and with enough English to the right or the left so that it starts spinning pretty well. You don't want to overspin the ball, so probably a half a tip above and a half a tip to the right. If you think about a cue ball, you basically want to take your tip and go diagonally, you know, at what looks like about a tip away. So I'll aim right at that chalk. Okay. And again, you're not always going to make the ball perfectly, but it should be pretty darn close. Any kind of questions on that? I'm going to
One more question.
go over a few more things. Sure.
Piece of chalk you said is sitting at 5. How do you arrive 5 on it?
Yeah, so, and again, this is where every system's a little different. So it would be easy if all these systems and numbers were the same every single system, but the people, like I said, they come up with systems where they make the numbers fit what the system is. So for this system, 1 is in the corner, so effectively on a pool table at least it's not usable. On a 3-cushion table it is. And then every half a diamond goes up another number. So this is 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is right in the middle. So like I said, my aim point's 5, but then for me personally, I use a quarter diamond adjustment, and that actually becomes my effective aim point. Now I can aim right at the middle and use more spin. I find that to be a little less consistent, but it can work. So now instead of using running English, I'm going to use like 2 tips of English, and I should be able to turn the ball into the rail. See, I used a little too much, right? So it came up a little short. And that's the challenge with using all that English, is you have to really blend it the right way. By making that quarter diamond adjustment, I found that to be very accurate on Brunswick, Diamond, Olhausen tables. It just works. Even on tables that play kind of short, like the diamonds, it works really well. Okay, so here's another example. So in this case, my object ball is going to be by the first diamond. And I'll put the cue ball out here. And this is, again, this is why you have to practice with these systems, because the reality is the balls are not going to line up on even numbered diamonds all the time. So that's where you have to learn to kind of estimate a little bit. So in this example, I'm going to estimate that my cue ball is coming from this diamond. So I would be 1, 2, 3 diamonds away. So I'm going to aim at 3, which is that first diamond right here. So you can see my cue ball is a little bit to the left of that. Now I can aim at 4, and you can see the cue ball is a little bit to the right of that. So I'm kind of right in between. So what I have to do is find a line that I know works, and then again, just sort of parallel my stick over a little bit. Does that make sense to everybody? So if I pick 3, and again, I'm 3 diamonds away from the ball I'm trying to hit, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 right to this diamond. I'm just going to kind of parallel my stick over a little bit, and that's going to be my aim spot. So in this case, my aim spot is right about here. Now again, I want to make that quarter diamond adjustment. So quarter diamond adjustment happens to put me right by that diamond. So this is going to be my new aim point. And again, running English. Okay. So the biggest challenge with this system, really a lot of the systems, but with the 2 and 3 rail systems, the one I'm going to show after this, the cue ball is not going to nicely just land like on that diamond, or right here where everything just works out perfect. So you have to find lines that are close and get used to kind of estimating where the cue ball is actually coming out of. And that's where the practice and everything comes in. Any questions on that? So this also works when the ball is along the end rail. Now there's a little bit of an adjustment that's needed, because as you kind of turn the corner, the way the angles are, it starts to become a little like one diamond isn't really one diamond. If you think about it, if you kind of spread the table out and you're kind of you're aiming still to this rail, it starts to where you need to make an adjustment because it's actually kind of double. So some people double it up when it hits this diamond. I found that this still works okay. I usually add double the amount as I go in this way. So if I'm counting, again, my cue ball, this is a good point too, my cue ball is not sitting at this diamond, it's sitting at the diamond that my stick is once I'm done aiming, if that makes sense. So if I'm aiming like this is the diamond here that I'm counting from. So if I'm counting from here, this would be 1, 2, and then when I get past this diamond, I kind of double it up. So this would be 3, 4. So I'm 4 diamonds away. So again, 4 is right between these two diamonds. Now the one adjustment I make when I'm hitting to something on the end rail like this is I do not make that quarter diamond adjustment. It's not needed because you're not trying to turn the ball into the rail. So I aim right at that spot. Okay. Now when you're hitting balls on the end rail, it's a little more finicky as far as the speed and the spin you're using, so that's again where practice comes in, but it's very useful. A lot of times you will have shots in a game where this is the next ball you're trying to hit, and you have some balls sitting over here like this, and it can be difficult to try to kick at it one rail. A lot of times you have to kind of elevate or spin the ball or something like that. So having this path available to you is very useful. Now again, you can always kick one rail at it and come directly off the rail and straight down at the ball, but a lot of times that doesn't safety possibilities after the shot. So again, if I just put the cue ball out here and had and put the ball even over here. So if I estimate where my cue ball is coming out of, which would be right 4, 5, 6, 7. So that would mean from here I would have to aim at this diamond. So you can see that that's a little far away, right? So what I'll do is I'll pick the next diamond down. So from here I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from here, and I would aim at 6, which would be right here. So that's pretty close. So now if I just kind of parallel my cue over a little bit, I have my have my aim spot. Okay. So again, it's a pretty accurate system. As I said, it works on a lot of different tables, and it's pretty useful to know. And the quarter diamond adjustment seems a little complicated maybe, and some of the numbers sometimes can be complicated for people because they're just, you're counting by half diamonds. But again, you have to kind of just play with it and do it to the point where you understand it, and don't get so tied up with the actual numbers. It just, again, somebody came up with a way to assign numbers to the diamonds where these things work, and every system's different. I probably know 30 or 40 systems. I've probably read about 70 to 100, and they're all different. Some of them have really weird, bizarre numbers to them, and I don't even bother myself with those. But when I find one that works and I work with it like this, it's a good tool to have in your arsenal. Okay, this is another common two-rail system. It's kind of the only other common one, and a lot of people use this for one and two rail kicks, and it's called the parallel system. And so what you do if you're trying to hit the 6 ball in this case, you find the midpoint between the two balls. So I'm trying to hit the 6, here's my cue ball. I try to find a spot halfway in between. I point my stick to the pocket that's in between the two rails I'm trying to hit. And then all I want to do is basically parallel my stick over, and wherever I end up over the cue ball, that's the spot I want to aim at on the rail. So it's that simple. I know a lot of players that do this visually. They'll just kind of look at the midpoint and they can kind of see that line and go like this. You'll see a lot of players, even pro players, where you'll see them go like this and move their stick over. Chris Melling does that on a lot of his kicks if you watch him. And it's a really accurate way of trying to figure out where exactly to hit. Now again, with all these systems, I always emphasize to my students, whether it's an aiming system or a kicking system or a banking system, if you're able to see all these lines without doing all the math, fantastic. Like, you don't need to know all these systems to be able to make these shots. There's a number of very good players that use no systems and they just feel it and see it, and that's great. I'm not one of those people. I can guesstimate, but I like having the foundation. So again, for this, I'm going to show you what typically happens on this shot. So you can see I've already drawn the line. So here's my shot. Here's my parallel line. I'm going to aim right into that spot on the rail. So watch what happens if I use, again, kind of running English and like a regular speed. See how I hit kind of the bottom of the ball? Matter of fact, if I hit this just a little softer, I might miss the whole ball altogether, possibly. And again, that's because of that little bit of slide that happens on the cushion. So usually what I do on this system, there's two ways to counteract that. One is I use more spin so that the ball turns into the rails a little better. So I'm going to hit this with like a tip and a half of spin instead of just the regular running English. Okay, see how I hit the ball full in the face now? So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to make a little adjustment. So again, I find my spot and I just aim down about an inch or so. Not a lot. Okay, so again, you see I hit the ball much fuller that way. I find that adjustment's needed on most tables. On a diamond table, you might have to go down even 2 inches to be able to hit it, or like I said, use more spin. It's definitely worth experimenting with this system and playing with it, because you'll find a wide range of angles. If you're coming into the rail like this at like a 45-degree angle, the ball is going to react a little different than if you're coming in directly at it or from a really shallow angle. So the system remains the same, but you still have to kind of accommodate for those different effects of how the rails are going to act. Okay, any other questions on that? I'm going to show just, I got to reverse these buttons. I was going to show, you know, kind of another random example, right? So again, something like this, just to kind of show you, visualize the midpoint between the balls through the pocket and just sort of parallel the stick over. And then what I usually do once I get that line, I look up at something on the rail usually that I can visualize, that I can aim at. Again, if you can kind of do this and just sort of visualize that line, that's fine too. Now again, my line's going to be about right here. I'm going to aim over about 2 inches, because I know if I aim right here, I'm going to come around the ball just a little bit, or I'm going to hit it on the back side, and I want to hit it kind of full in the face. So okay. So again, depending on what I'm trying to do with that ball, I may be trying to kick it in, I may be trying to create separation between the balls, I may want to hit it on a certain side of the ball. So I'll adjust my speed and my spin based on what I'm trying to do. But the approach and how you kind of calculate that works the same. So again, you know, here's another shot like this. So I'm trying to hit this ball, look at the midpoint, look down that pocket, parallel the stick over, and then go over about an inch or two. Okay. So you can see, especially if I'm not talking, I can find the line and move my stick and get my line probably within 2 seconds. and then I can sit here and still treat it like a shot. Don't rush down and just try to whack away at it. I sit there and still look and make sure I'm aiming properly and going through my whole routine, because I want to strike the ball the right way. I want to give it the right amount of running English. I want to focus on my speed, all of that. A lot of times I'll see people aim bank or kick shots, and then they get down so quick to try to hit them, they're not really going through their normal routine. Okay, so if you don't like math, we've already done a little bit of it, a little bit more, and then we're done, I think. So one of the challenges with what's usually known as the diamond system, which is the 3-rail system that has been published a bazillion times in almost every book out there. Sometimes it's even completely incorrect, but it's still been published. I think it was Willie Hoppy or Willie Moscone, one of those two had a book like back in the 50s or 60s, and they had a whole write-up on it, and it was completely incorrect. If anybody ever saw the Donald and Mathemagic Land back in the 50s or 60s, I remember seeing it, and Donald Duck actually teaches the diamond system. If you want to look it up on YouTube, I think it's out there. It's pretty cool. It's actually completely accurate the way he teaches it, so it's kind of funny. I didn't play pool when I was younger, but I still remember seeing the cartoon, and of course I've seen it since then. But so anyways, the thing with the diamond system is there is some math, and there's 3 sets of numbers, but at the end of the day you're subtracting one number from another, so it's pretty basic math. The real issue with the system is learning the track lines and then figuring out where the cue ball's coming from, and so I'm going to try to go over all that. If you have any questions, stop me. Again, there's tons of resources out there that do show this, that you can kind of get different perspectives and see. So the first thing to know, this is a little different on a 3-cushion table versus a pool table, but generally on most pool tables, if the cue ball goes 3 rails around the table and comes out of this 3rd diamond, generally that 3rd diamond points to the corner pocket. Okay, so that's good to know. So that would be called track line 3. If you go to track 4, which is basically coming in towards the side pocket, it generally comes about 1/2 to 2/3 of a diamond away from the pocket. It's not really like a 1-to-1 correspondence because of the way the rails rebound. If you come off of track 2, which is that 2nd diamond, again, you're going to be about 2/3 to 3/4 of a diamond above. And then if you come out of track 1, which would be the 1st diamond, you're going to be about 1.5 diamonds away. So it's about, like I said, 2/3 to 3/4 for every track line or every diamond that you're off. Does that make sense so far? Now the track lines are only useful if you're trying to hit something kind of at the end of the 3-rail, or when you're trying to hit something on the 4th rail. If you're trying to go, let's say 1, 2, 3 and hit something up here, you don't need to know the track lines. Okay, this is the fun part. So it's actually not too bad. So there's 3 sets of numbers. So if my cue ball is coming out of this corner, I have the 1st rail number numbered right down the diamonds, nice and simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That would be the number I'm hitting or aiming at on the 1st rail. Then I have a set of 3rd rail numbers, which is the numbers on the 3rd rail that I'm going to hit. Again, right down the diamonds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nice and simple. The cue ball numbers, and again, don't get too tied up with this, this is just to make the system work. The cue ball numbers are numbered in halves. So it starts with 1 in the corner, and then it's 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. And then when they turn the corner, it goes by ones, again, because the table's twice as long as it is wide, so this is 6, 7, 8. So again, you're going to have to study this. I was a math and computer science major in college. When I started learning this system, playing 3-cushion, I would spend 1 to 2 minutes over the table trying to figure out all my numbers and just get everything right, because again, the cue ball's not going to land right on a diamond. It's going to be out here somewhere, and you have to kind of adjust and readjust until you can figure it out. But after I spent a couple of weeks, 15 minutes, 20 minutes every time practicing it, it's so second nature out there, and within, again, 2 to 3 seconds, figure out where I want to hit, get down, hit the ball, and make a good hit on it. So it does require a little bit of practice just to get used to the numbers. So I have the formulas kind of listed on the table, but essentially, if I'm trying to hit a spot on the third rail, let's say I'm trying to hit at 3 right here, and my cue ball is at 5, which is the corner, 5 minus 3 is 2, so I aim at the second diamond. It's that simple. The problem is getting all the numbers in the beginning. So if I want to hit at number 2, and my cue ball is at number 4 right here, again, 4 minus 2 is 2, I aim at the second diamond. That sort of makes sense? I'm going to do a few examples. So okay, so here's a simple example. So this one's going to actually use the track lines that we talked about. So I'm trying to hit this ball. You know, someone hooked me like that. Very difficult to hit the ball. Now again, I could always go one rail, but I was kind of coming up with some examples here. You know, what if I've got some balls kind of in the way that I can't hit one rail, or not very easily. So my cue ball number, again, start here, it's 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. So my cue ball is coming out of the corner, which is 5. And again, if you guys ever see this system online, sometimes it's called the corner 5 system. That's why, because 5 is the corner. So I said before that track 3, coming off this third diamond, is what goes to the corner. So that means I want to hit the third diamond. So 5 minus 3 is 2. So again, that tells me I want to hit the second diamond in order to make this shot. So again, I want to use running English, so a little bit high, a little bit to the right, and aim right at that spot. Okay. Now again, the way I set the ball was a little bit away, so if I put it a little closer in the pocket, it makes it a little bit nicer. Okay. So again, it's pretty accurate. You have to take into account table conditions, you know, sometimes if the balls are new or old and all that, but on any given table, once you kind of figure out the track line and figure out if it's running long or short, it's very accurate for all the shots kind of in between. So does anybody have any questions on why we...
Yeah, I might have missed this. Do you always use running English on the shot?
On this system, yes.
On that system?
Yep. Yep. That's a good question, by the way. Sorry, I forget to repeat the questions because the people can't hear it. So yeah, the question was, do you always use running English on the shot? So every system's a little different. The system sit I showed in the beginning, it's no English. The other systems I showed are always running English. And again, every system is a little bit different. I prefer the running English systems because the nice thing about using running English is if you put a little too much on the ball or you don't quite put enough, the rail kind of helps you out. If you don't quite put enough English on the ball and it hits the rail will actually add a little more until it's natural. And if you actually overspin the ball a little bit, again, just a little, it'll actually remove a little bit of the English for you too. And so the track lines kind of work themselves out a little bit. Okay, so here's another example, and this kind of shows what I was talking about before, where the cue ball's not always going to land nicely where it's going to be on an even diamond. So here's the ball I'm trying to hit. I showed before that if track 3 comes to the corner, track 2 comes about 2/3 or 3/4 of a diamond away. So I know I want to hit off of the second diamond to come down track 2. So now that I know that, I got to figure out my cue ball number so I can subtract them. So what I usually do is try to find something that's close. So if I'm trying to find something that's going to equal 2, I mean, I can try 5 minus 3 or 4 minus 2, 3 minus 1, you know, do something simple. So I'll start with 4 minus 2, and that puts me where this dashed line is right here. Now you can see that the cue ball is not quite on that line, so like we did before, you can just simply kind of parallel your stick over and shoot down that new aim point, whatever that is. Now what I do from playing 3 cushion is I actually use the numbers on the table and figure it out that way instead of using the parallel. So for me, I would go over a couple inches and say, okay, I'm going to guesstimate that that's 3.8. So 3.8 minus 1.8 would be 2. And again, if you don't like working with decimals, you can multiply all the numbers by 10 and do 38 minus 18. I've seen the Japanese systems work that way. Most people, I think it's easier for them to parallel the stick over. Like I said, I do it with the numbers. So whichever way you do it, you'll find a line where the two numbers differ by 2, which should bring you to the second diamond and bring you down to this ball. So I'm going to aim, again, if I started here, I'm going to aim over a little bit like the line shows, and just do that with a little bit of running English. Okay, so pretty accurate. And again, I will make a lot of hits on these balls, kick in some balls when they're in the right positions to be kicked in. It's a very, very useful system. It just takes a little bit to get over the math and to get used to figuring out the numbers in less than a minute. Okay, so here's an example where we're not trying to hit something on the 4th rail, essentially. We're just trying to hit a ball that's up here. This comes up all the time. So again, you know, you got some blocker balls here, and I'm trying to make a hit. So I don't have to worry about the track lines anymore. I just need to see where this ball is. And you want to go into the diamonds. You don't want to look where it's opposite. If this ball is sitting right here, opposite the 3rd diamond, my cue ball is going to come down and be pointed into the 3rd diamond. It's actually hitting the cushion way up here. And what will happen a lot of times is it'll hit the cushion and rebound and go right by the ball. So you want to kind of always be looking at it on like a diagonal to figure out what number you're trying to hit. So with this ball being here, I can see that if I come down into the 3rd diamond, I'm going to make a pretty good hit on the ball. So if this is my cue ball is sitting at 6. So remember, when we turn the corner, it goes up by 1. So this is 5, this is 6. So 6 minus 3 is 3. So that means I hit the 3rd diamond over here. And I should make a pretty good hit on the 8 ball. And again, just nice running English. Okay. Don't do that. Again, for me personally, if this actually was a game of 8 ball, and you know, a person has some, you know, solids on the table or whatever, and that's my last shot, you know, I'm going to do my best to either try to hit the ball softly and maybe try to hook the person, or if I have to kind of just go for it because all their other balls are sitting near the pockets or something, I'm going to try my best to try to find this line as accurately as I can, where maybe I would get lucky and come in right at the right angle and cut the ball down in the corner. And I've done that before. Obviously, that's a relatively low percentage shot. I may have to hit it 10 or 15 times to be able to get that result, but it's at least worth trying. Like I said, sometimes this ball might be out here a little bit, and you know, I may try something kind of a little slower, you know, and do something like this and try to come in there, you know, very slowly and maybe just try to hook behind the ball or something like that. So, but the numbers will give you a very good way to estimate the shot. And again, I definitely encourage you, this is not something you're going to learn in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You go back and watch the video, look up Tor Lowry's stuff, look up any other people out there that have good versions of this where you can learn it. Now, it'd probably be another hour for me to show you like all the adjustments you can do with this, because there's adjustments when you're on the short side of the table, the long side of the table. There's some other little tricks with it, but this is like the basic common thing that'll get you like 80% of the way there and keep it somewhat simple with the numbers. I use this all the time when I'm playing 9-ball, 10-ball rotation to kick out of traps. It's very useful and very accurate. The nice thing about this system as well is, I covered the spot on the wall system last time. Well, the spot on the wall system works great for something like this as well. So you don't have to memorize all these numbers or know what all the numbers are. If you know the basic track line, you can use the spot on the wall system to save yourself some of the math. So if I know I want to hit a ball here in the corner, and we already said that track 3 goes to the corner. So if you remember just that from this, that's useful information. So if I know I want to come out of 3, and my cue ball's at 5, 5 minus 3 is 2, and again, on most pool tables, if you aim from the corner and you aim somewhere around that second diamond, usually the ball will travel to the corner pocket. So if I know that, and let me just shoot it one more time on this table just to make sure everything's running good. Okay. So if I know that, I can put the cue ball anywhere on the table, and I can use a spot on the wall system. So I'm going to sit back here, and I'm going to look down my line to the second diamond, and I'm going to project out to a spot that's about 9 to 10 feet away. So if I get down here and look, I'm aimed about an inch to the right of that white wall cover over there where the light switch thing is. So wherever the cue ball is now, I'm just going to aim an inch to the right of that wall cover and shoot with running English. So again, I don't want to aim when I'm down on the shot, just like a normal pool. A lot of people do that. I see people down here when they're shooting and they're doing this. You want to do all your aiming when you're standing up. So I'm going to aim from up here and make sure I'm right at that spot so that when I get down I can just be right on that spot. Okay. So it doesn't matter where the ball is. I can throw it out there anywhere. Now there's limits. If I'm way up here, I can't see the light switch anymore, so it might not work. But again, if I'm here, I can aim right at just an inch to the right of that. Oh, I just missed it. Even if you're down on this side of the table, same thing. Look at that light switch. Okay. So if you just know the track, the corner pocket track, and don't know anything else, that alone can help you, make some shots when they're near the corner pocket. And even if you don't want to learn the math, if you know that the ball is up here, and I use that spot on the wall system, I can basically use that system and say, okay, if I aim at that spot, it's going to go to the corner. I want to go a diamond away from the corner, so I can just maybe adjust up a diamond and just kind of estimate. So I can do that here, aim at that spot, and then get my spot on the rail and just sort of aim over a little bit. And I might get pretty close without even doing the math or the numbers or anything. So, okay. So, like I said, I've spent a lot of time working on this. It's kind of a specialty of mine. I love being able to pull that kind of stuff off. It doesn't always work that way. I miss them by fractions of an inch sometimes. Sometimes I miss them by a couple inches if the rails are doing something I'm not ready for, or maybe I hit the ball bad. I hit it too hard for the aim that I had, or hit it too soft, something like that. So, but I would say probably 80 to 90% of my kick shots, I'm hitting them pretty clean, and I have a good chance of making something good happen, whether it's resafing the person or making the ball. So again, there's some ways to do this without all of the math, and they're probably just as effective as using the math, depending on your how you're kind of wired. Like I said, I like doing the numbers, but that's just me. Okay. Want to talk, so that's all the kicking systems. Any questions on the 1 or the 2 or the 3 rail kicking systems we covered today? Okay. And again, I'll be around for a couple hours after this. If you guys want to come up and do like any one-on-one, I'll be happy to show you or help you do it so that you can kind of get it kind of cemented in your head. I want to talk a little bit about banking then. So all of these systems I showed today are applicable to banking as well. So for instance, if I have a ball sitting here and the cue ball's here and I want to bank this ball 3 rails, I can see that my line's going to the second diamond. So, I can bank that ball around 3 rails and get it pretty close, right? So the challenge with banking, and even the best bank pool players in the world that I've seen, will occasionally miss what you would consider almost like a straight-in shot in regular pool. I've seen them have a bank like this and miss it. And you would think, here's the best bank pool players in the world. They make all these crazy banks, and then they have a really simple bank that, a good player would be 80-90% to make, and they miss it. So there are a lot of effects that go into that, and I want to talk about those, not to really scare anybody away from banking, but they're legitimate effects that you have to be cognizant of and that you have to take into effect. So the first thing is spin. When you're shooting an object ball, You know, if I have a shot like this into the corner pocket, if my stroke is not good and I accidentally put a little left or a little right English on the ball, especially with low deflection shafts, a lot of times you get lucky and the ball still goes in. You don't have to hit it perfect. When you're banking a ball, any little bit of extra spin one way or the other can definitely make an impact on whether you make or miss the bank shot. Spin puts just a little bit, it transfers about 2 to 3% of the spin to the object ball. So when that object ball hits a cushion, it will definitely open up or kind of reverse off that cushion if you have any unintended spin on there. Now you can also use spin to help make bank shots and turn bank shots that shouldn't go into banks that do go. But again, you have to be very precise about it. You also sometimes don't want to use too much spin. It's kind of counterintuitive, but if you use like maximum spin on a bank, you actually don't get quite as much throw as you do if you use like kind of a half a tip to a 3/4 of a tip kind of shot. So those are just things to keep in mind. Speed is another big one. When you hit a ball, again, if I hit this object ball super hard or super soft and I aim it correctly, it's still going to go in the hole. If I have a bank shot and I hit it super slow or super hard, it is not going to go in the same place. When the object ball hits the cushion, it compresses the cushion. It's going to compress it more if it's coming at a direct angle than if it's coming at a more shallow angle. And the harder you hit it, the more it's going to compress, which means the shorter it's going to come off the rail. So I can have the same exact bank shot and hit it at 3 different speeds and put the ball in 3 different spots. So me personally, when I bank, when I used to practice, I try to bank it like kind of a normal shooting speed, and then try to bank it like kind of a firm speed. Not really like super hard, but just firm. And then you can kind of extrapolate a little bit from there when you're in a game, if you're having to shoot the shot. The cut angle is really important. So if I have a bank like this, I can do all the things we just talked about and theoretical spot where I want to hit that ball on the rail. But if the cue ball is here and cutting across the ball that way, or if I'm here and I'm cutting across the ball the other way, even if I hit that same exact spot on the rail, the object ball is going to go in 2 different places. And that's because of cut-induced throw. So when I cut across the ball, it actually puts a little turn on the 6 ball, which is going to open up the shot. And you see people most commonly, they have banks like this, and the object ball is kind of above the ball, so they're cutting across it. Well, when they cut across it, that 6 ball picks up a little bit of left English. And so instead of it coming into the pocket, it's actually going to land a little short. And so you have to do a couple things to be able to compensate for that. You either have to cut the ball a little bit more, or you have to put a little bit of outside English on the cue ball to kind of negate that English. So you can use all these systems I talked about, probably all 13 or 14 of them, whatever we've covered so far, to figure out where to bank the ball, but you have to be aware of the relationship between the cue ball and the object ball to be able to make the bank go. Here's a big one that a lot of people don't realize: proximity to the rail. So if I have this bank, let's say it's right here on this perfect 2-to-1 line like we talked about last time. I'm coming from the second diamond, I'm going to the first diamond, it should come to the side pocket. This bank right here is different than that bank right there. Even though they're on the same exact line and you're going to hit them the same exact speed, they are going to react differently. When the ball is within about a half diamond of the cushion, it does not have time to attain normal forward roll, so it's going to be sliding into the cushion. So it is going to come up just a little shorter than if the ball was out in the middle of the table a little bit more. I see a lot of people missing banks because of that. I myself have forgotten to make that adjustment in a game. So when the ball is close to the rail, you have to kind of tweak it just a little bit outside English, or cut it just a little bit more to get it to go. Angle into the rail. Again, when you're banking a ball kind of directly into the cushion, you'll see most of the good bank pool players hit it pretty firm. They actually use that compression of the cushion to kind of straighten the ball out. So instead of hitting it at this angle, if they can get the ball to come in at a straighter angle, it makes the pocket a little bigger. But when you have, like, say, a cross corner bank like this, and you're hitting it into this rail and into that pocket, the cushion is not going to compress as much because it's coming in at more of an angle. It's not hitting it quite as direct. So again, those are all things you have to kind of factor in. And then the last thing, and a big one, is table conditions. There's a lot of famous stories from the hustlers back in the day about people opening doors to try to get the room more humid and screw somebody up when they're playing, especially when they're playing one pocket or bank pool, turning the air conditioner down really low. All these things actually have an effect on the table. You hear the commentators on YouTube now in all these matches talk about the lights. You know, if you've been to a professional tournament, there's massive lights over the TV table, and they're hot and they're dry, and that makes the table play different. So they're up in the practice room, they got their game going, and they get to the TV table maybe, and if they're not a seasoned, like, top-level professional, they might not be used to those effects. So, all that being said, don't be afraid of trying to bank the ball or anything. It's kind of funny because I can teach people, and I've done a lot of banking lessons over the years, but I can teach people how to aim the banks, but you have to take all these other things into account to be able to make the bank shot. So we talked last time about the 2-to-1 lines, right, for kicking. So if you look at the distance you're trying to bank into, if you cut that in half, that's kind of your theoretical aim point. Well, when you're banking, you normally want to bank kind of more medium firm instead of really soft. So those 2-to-1 lines are good for a soft bank. But again, that's not going to give you the most accurate bank. So Dr. Dave has a system that he calls the twice the distance plus a third, and that works as well. I always learned it years ago as 2.5 to 1. So I just kind of made a little chart here. So again, if you watch this back, you don't want to do the math. But essentially, if I'm coming out of the first diamond here, which would be 10, I want to aim at 4. So 5 would be half of that. That would be for a slow bank. But if I'm going to hit it medium firm, I want to aim at 4, which is, again, it's 2.5 times 4 is 10. So if I'm on that line, that's what I always have called my 2.5 to 1 line. And this is no English, just medium firm. And what this does is it accounts for the fact that you're hitting the ball a little harder. Like I said before, you want to aim about 10% more. So this kind of accounts for that. So if I'm on this line with center ball, okay, so that's on the 10 to 4 line. See if I can actually make all 5. Usually I'm going to miss at least 1. So, and again, that's because, like I said before, slight differences in speed, spin, whatever. So if I'm on the second diamond, I want to aim at 8, which would be right about here. And again, medium firm with center ball. So when these banks come up, and I realize that the bank's not always going to nicely land on this line, but it could be kind of close. And so when I'm in a game and I'm left a bank shot, this is one of the first things I look at because I know where all these lines are. So if I'm a little close to the line, just slightly, and not have to really think too much about where to aim the bank, I can just focus on my stroke and know that it's going to go where. So I'm 3 diamonds away. That would be at 30 right here, and that would go to 12, which is right here. Another easy way to do this is if you just count by diamonds and you multiply by 4, it kind of does the same thing as dividing by 2.5. It's a little bit easier. So if I'm here, if I'm at 1 diamond away from the pocket, I aim at 4. If I'm 2 diamonds away, I aim at 8. 3 diamonds away, I can aim at 12. Okay, so like that one, for instance, I might have had just a hair of, I might have cut it a little bit, not enough, or I might have had just a hair of English on it. And again, it doesn't take much for that to happen. Yeah, so the question was putting running English. On these, I am not. So the 2.5 to 1 line, normally you can hit this with just center ball if the cue ball's right on the line. Now, if I was cutting across the ball a little bit, I would put a little bit of running English on it. So if I'm coming from the corner pocket, again, 4 diamonds away times 4 would be 16. So I'm going to aim right about there. Okay. And then you can turn the corner and do the same thing. So if you're coming off the 5th diamond right here, that would be into 5 times 4 is 20. So that would be right into the middle right there. Okay, so you can see because of that extra little angle, it widened out just a little bit. If I hit that same shot probably just a hair firmer, then it would go. Oh. And again, that could be these angles. When you get on these extremes like this, it can be a little table dependent on how much extra slide you get. Yeah, so you can see I hit that just a little bit harder. Yeah, a little bit harder, like a 6 or a 7, yeah. So anyways, when I see those types of banks, for me, knowing that 2.5 to 1 line, it allows me to hit the ball on a firm speed. If I was going to hit at a soft speed, I can use the standard kind of 2 to 1 line. So if I almost never bank this way, but if I'm coming off the second diamond, I aim at the first diamond to go in the corner. You know, I could do that and just kind of bank the ball softly. Right? Again, I don't like banking like that. You can see even when it hit that rail, it twisted a little bit. It's not as accurate to do that. So you usually want to bank it like a medium to a medium firm speed. Okay. A couple of the things just real quick. Get back to normal lighting conditions. So again, you can use all the different systems we talked about to figure out how to aim the bank. So let's say I have this shot like this. I'm trying to bank the one ball on the side. So if you remember last time, we used like the crisscross method with the sticks, and then we used kind of a quicker method. So if I use that quicker method, if I come into the rail and I go to this side pocket where I'm trying to bank it, and I draw my line across from is the spot where this ball has to be aimed. Okay, so same as if I was kicking the ball from that same spot. So I can look at that shot and see, okay, I have to cut this ball like first diamond. Now what I have to do is figure out all those different effects I talked about and how that's going to affect the bank shot. Because if I just aim it right there, it may or may not go. So I can see that I'm cutting across the ball a little bit. So I may want to put just a little bit of outside English on this to help turn the ball into the pocket. So if I was going to aim the bank that way, I would aim my object ball at that spot and just medium speed and give the cue ball a little bit of running English. Okay, so I didn't cut it enough. And I don't aim my banks this way personally, but a lot of people do. Okay. The other thing that's nice that you can use is the spot on the wall system. So again, if I have a ball sitting out here and the cue ball's right here, if I know that from the first diamond gets me to the pocket, I can project a line out on that line, and right now I'm kind of pointing almost at that second diamond on that table over there. So I could aim this 3 ball at that second diamond on that table, and that would be the theoretical point to make the bank. So if I put the cue ball right in that line, so I don't have to worry about any cutting across the ball or any other effects, this bank here should go in. Okay, pretty close. So you can use that spot on the wall system even to do a quick calculation on guesstimating the banks. One of the guys I used to play with, he would try to put numbers on everything and say it was an 18-9 bank or a 24-12 bank or whatever, and he would kind of subdivide all the diamonds up and do that halfway, and that's a good way to do it. The thing to remember with banks is the cue ball doesn't matter, so you're figuring out where to aim the object ball. So if I'm looking at this, like here's my, if I go down here, this would be 30 to 15. That would be my line right there. So I'm kind of just a little bit off on that. So now if I put the cue ball in play, now I know that that's where I have to aim, is right here. And now because I'm cutting across the ball, I need to put a little outside English on the cue ball. So I'm going to try to aim it right there and use a little bit of outside English in kind of a medium speed. Okay, so again, not quite enough, and it's because I was cutting across the ball. And that's where just the experience and everything comes in. These are like this, but it works great if you're used to that. A lot of people cut balls using fractions or using the numbers or just using feel, and all that's fine. The spot on the wall also works for multiple rail banks. I'm going to test this one out. I tried to do it real quick when I got down here today, but I was out of town for work, so I didn't have a chance to see, but this usually works on most tables. So usually if you take a line from the third diamond here to opposite the second diamond, it's usually a pretty good line for like a 4-rail bank shot. So again, I'm going to hit this with just a little bit of running English. Ah. There. Okay. Okay, so that works pretty good on this table. So again, if I'm playing one pocket, or I want to get a little fancy like Chris Melling did in one of his 8-ball games, and I want to bank that ball 4 rails, again, if I'm an experienced bank pool player, not a problem. But if I know that one line works, I can kind of guesstimate how to aim this 9-ball then. So if I look down my line, I'll be pointing right at Ed here. So don't move. No, don't move, otherwise it's going to mess me up. So again, I'm going to look at a spot about 9 or 10 feet away. So kind of right at the left side of the writing that's on his shirt. So if I aim that 9-ball at that writing, that will give me a good spot to aim the bank. Okay, so it's going to get pretty close. Now, he might have moved, I don't know. Yeah, so again, is it going to be perfect, especially when you're banking 4 rails? No, but it'll give you a really good guideline. If you know one track for a bank, you can estimate the others. Especially when they get into kind of weird locations like this, it might not be intuitive as to where you want to aim. Right, so it gets you in the ballpark. And if you're not used to banking balls like that, it's much better than guessing. And that'll work for any 2, 3, 4-rail banks that you know. If you know one good one, you can oftentimes use the spot on the wall to aim something that's not on that exact line. So any questions on the systems I covered, or on the banking part of it? No? Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate it. Again, this has been kind of a mini masterclass within the masterclass, because I really enjoy working with like kick shots and things like that. Next time I'm going to cover braking, jumping, and a little bit of like curve and masse type shots, and how to aim those and how to hit those. So look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you.